Welcome everyone to this week's Torah portion review. This week we are on Parsha Balak. Now for this week's lesson, we're going to be looking into the Midrash to help us better understand this story. So it's recommended you read the story from the Torah first and then review how the Midrash presents this story. So remember that when we say Midrash, this refers to a special rabbinic or Jewish mode of interpretation. The purpose of the Midrash is to fill in the blanks, okay? So it's supposed to answer some confusing questions to help us better understand these Torah portions and the narrative along the Torah. So we open up this week with the Moabites teaming up with the Midianites to try to take down Israel. Last week we saw how Edom and Moab refused to let Israel cross their land in order to get them to the promised land. Now we read about how the Moabites just heard the terrifying news. Israel fought and defeated the other nations that didn't let them cross. They even killed the mighty giants, Sihon and Og. So Moab started to get super anxious, right? They pretty much knew they were cooked. So the Moabites went to their neighbors, the Midianites, and Balak was the king of Moab. That's definitely a name you're going to want to remember. He's basically the title of this week's Torah portion is this King Balak of Moab, who um, he expected, or everybody expected him to get ready to organize an army and to prepare for war, right? But King Balak wasn't going to do any of that. Why? Well, King Balak, he thought there was no point to even prepare to fight Israel because they clearly won their last battles so easily. So instead, he thought that they should at least first figure out what is the secret power that they really have? What's helping them win all these battles? So the Moabites and the Midianites figured out that the true power of the Israelites was in their prayers. So the Israelites pray to God to protect them and to help them, and they easily overcome their enemies. So they started to make their game plan. What if, Moses is their leader who is super connected to God? Well, what if we find someone who is on the same level to play on our team? So they thought of the perfect person. It was a man named Bilam. So the Midrash tells us that Bilam was famous. He was a famous magician and he had a talent for explaining dreams. If Bilam cursed someone, well, guess what? Bilam's curses always came true. Bilam was also a powerful magician. In those days, remember, many people, according to the Midrash, they practice witchcraft. And that's something that is explicitly forbidden in the Torah. Not even a sense of don't do it. Yeah, not even a sense of try it. No. Witchcraft is forbidden. So this is similar to how the Pharaoh's magicians, remember back in the Exodus, how they were able to turn water into blood and they were able to turn their staffs into snakes. So King Balak and Bilam were both expert magicians. And if they worked together, well, they thought that they would be able to use their powers to destroy the Israelites. So the Midrash says that every day, very early in the morning, there's a moment when Hashem is angry at the world. Bilam was said to know exactly when that moment occurred. So if he cursed someone at that exact moment, then the curse would come true because of Hashem's anger. Bilam also had another power. It says that he had an evil eye. If he turned his evil eye on someone, then the destroying angels in heaven would harm that person. So King Balak was excited to try this idea out since he truly believed Bilam was the key to harming the Israelites. So King Balak sent a group of men to invite Bilam to curse the Israelites. They brought a ton of money to convince him, and they brought a ton of magic tools that Bilam could use. They basically said, we want you to help us curse the Jews. You're going to get paid a lot of money, and you'll have a lot of honor. Everybody's going to love you. Everybody's going to respect you for this. Bilam heard this proposal, and immediately he got excited. The Midrash says he hated the people of Israel with all of his heart, and his greatest wish was to curse them. However, he didn't say yes immediately. Bilam wanted to ask God first if God would give him permission to curse the Jews or not. Now, the Midrash says that Bilam spoke to God not because he was a worthy person. Bilam was set apart, but not in a good way. One Midrash explains that the same way Moses was elevated in purity, Bilam was also elevated on that same level, but not in purity. but impurity. Okay, so let's say here's the playing field right here. Moses was elevated all the way up here, and then Bilam was elevated, but pretty much the opposite way. Bilam was on that same, as Moses was holy, Bilam was unholy. Or as Moses was pure, Bilam was impure. So Bilam didn't even talk directly to God. The Midrash says that God used a cloud to communicate to Bilam. So the conversation went like this, right? That night, God asked Bilam, "Who were those men that just approached you?" Pause. Why would God ask that? Didn't he know who the men were? The Midrash says, yes, God obviously knew, but he was giving Bilam a chance to explain. And Bilam basically repeated the plan, but he sort of changed a few details. It didn't even matter because God at the end of the day said, no, you cannot curse the Israelites. So the Torah explains a little back and forth between Balak's messengers and Bilam, and they just didn't get the message. So they returned again to try to convince Bilam, and this time King Balak sent even richer and more important men with much more money to convince Bilam. They basically said the exact same thing, and Bilam replied, look, even if Bilam gave me all the money in the world, or all the money that he has, I can't do anything without God's permission. So really, Bilam should have just straight up sent the messengers home, and that should be the end of the story. But Bilam really had the audacity at this point. He thought, well, let me ask Hashem again. Maybe he's going to change his answer. So this time, finally, God let Bilam go. Okay, Hashem said, okay, you can go to King Balak. You can even offer advice, but you can go to his parties. But whatever you do, you cannot curse the Israelites. Get that down. You cannot curse the Israelites. Well, why did Hashem let Bilam go? The rabbis explained that at first, Bilam was super arrogant. Bilam was like, oh, you know what? Hashem isn't letting me go because my curses are too powerful. He's scared that I'm going to destroy Israel, so he doesn't want to let me go. But in reality, Hashem was just trying to do Bilam a favor. Not even that he deserved it, but you know, Bilam is basically going on a suicide mission if he really thinks that he can stand a chance against the Israelites. But as the rabbis teach, God lets a person go in a direction that they want to go. And to an extent, he allows them, he even helps them get to where they want to go. So even though Bilam knew that he was not supposed to curse the Jews, in his heart he thought that he would find a way to do so. So he was still excited for the mission. Right? Hashem was angry with him because of this. So Hashem sent an angel of mercy to stop him. With this, Bilam was supposed to reflect and think about what he's really doing. So the angel stood in front of Bilam's donkey with a sword drawn out. Right? The sword was drawn out. But only the donkey saw the angel, not Bilam. Hashem said, maybe if Bilam finds out that his donkey knows more than he does, he's going to be more humble. He'll give up. When the donkey saw the angel, it stopped right there on the road. And instead of continuing on the road, it stepped onto the side, onto the field, to go around the angel. And Bilam didn't understand why his donkey was going off the road, so he hit the donkey and he drove it back on the road. By now, the angel disappeared. Then the angel appeared a second time, and the donkey saw it again. But at this point, they were crossing a narrow path where there was a stone wall on each side of the road. Imagine this picture, but the stone walls were very narrow. So the donkey had nowhere to go, and so the donkey moved to the side, and it pressed Bilam's foot up against the wall of the stones. And this hurt Bilam so badly that it basically made him lame in one foot. So from then on, Bilam started to limp whenever he walked because of this. But this didn't stop Bilam from continuing with the trip, right? So the angel appeared a third time, and this time the donkey had nowhere else to go. So the donkey just straight up crouched. It just sat down. It refused to move. So this should have made Bilam think about how weird his donkey was acting. This was his personal donkey. It's been his donkey since forever. And it never once behaved like that. So what's going on? Why all of a sudden? Bilam should have realized that Hashem was preventing him from traveling further, but instead, Bilam got angry. And he took his stick out and he gave the poor animal a very, very nasty beating. Suddenly, Hashem miraculously opened the donkey's mouth and let it speak like a human being. The donkey basically rebuked Bilam for all this, and he says, Bilam, I'm literally just a dumb animal. Why are you hitting me? What's your deal, man? Have I ever acted like this before? No. Don't you think that means that I have a good reason? When Bilam heard this, he felt ashamed. However, the Midrash says that Bilam didn't really even change his feelings. So Hashem opened up Bilam's eyes, and suddenly he saw the angel standing right in front of him with his sword drawn, and Bilam fell down and bowed. The angel scolded him, saying, "How dare you hit your donkey 3 times? You sinned. You did a terrible thing by causing your animal pain. If Hashem is angry with you because you hurt your donkey, do you really think he's going to let you hurt his children?" So at this point, Bilam should have repented and returned, but they were basically already there. So the angel told Bilam to keep in mind that his evil plans aren't going to work. Bilam will only be allowed to say the words that Hashem puts in his mouth. So again, the rabbis also mention, if God can open up the donkey's mouth and speak this, don't you think God has control of your mouth as well? Bilam should have realized this. He didn't. Bilam arrived to see King Balak, and they began to scheme, right? They built 7 big altars to offer sacrifices to Hashem, hoping to fight the right time to curse the Israelites. However, the Midrash says that on those days, just on those days that they wanted to curse the Israelites, God, being the merciful, compassionate God he is, he withheld his anger. He was not angry at all that day. So just with that, there was a 0% success rate. There was no way they would win. No way Balak and Bilam would win this. God appeared to Bilam, and Bilam started to boast. Bilam was like, "Look, God, look at all these altars and sacrifices we made for you." And Hashem said, "Do you really think I want the offerings of a wicked person?" And suddenly, it was as if Bilam was being fully controlled by Hashem now. Bilam lost all ability. Bilam could no longer choose his own words, and he was forced to say whatever Hashem wanted him to say. Everyone was ready for Bilam to pronounce the first curse against Israel, but Hashem changed all the words he had prepared to say. Hashem turned every single curse that Bilam was about to say, he turned it into a blessing. Imagine, these people hired Bilam to pronounce the most wicked, the most devastating, the most despicable, the most harmful curses, but instead, Hashem caused them to pronounce blessings. The first blessing included, "How can I curse one whom God has not cursed? How can I denounce one whom Adonai has not denounced?" The first blessing acknowledged that Hashem was holding back his anger for the sake of his people. How could anyone possibly harm them? King Balak was furious. King Balak was like, "Dude, I asked you to curse them, not bless them. If you couldn't think of a curse, dude, you should have just stayed quiet." And Bilam was just as angry. Right after saying all this, he says, "Do you really think I want to bless them? Hashem is forcing me to say this." King Balak thought, well, maybe we should just go to a different mountain. So they went to a different mountain and they offered more sacrifices. They offered more sacrifices on 7 new altars. The second blessing included, Bilam said, "God is not a man who lies, or a son of man who changes his mind. Does he speak and then not do it, or promise and not fulfill it? Look, I received the command to bless. He has blessed. I cannot change it." Again, Hashem was making everyone there understand that his love for his people is incomparable. They can't be harmed if God has not allowed it. Balak yelled again. He says, "Bilam, just don't curse them or bless them. Just stay quiet. Just shut up. Just don't talk." This is Bilam's second time failing trying to curse the Israelites. But the king wanted to try one more time. They went to another mountain and they offered more sacrifices on 7 altars there again. The Midrash gives a little anecdote, a little backstory to this next blessing. It says, Bilam looked down at the tents of the Israelites in the desert. Remember, this is over 1 million people in the desert. Okay, it wasn't just a small little town, it was a whole society, really. And he saw something unusual. He says that every single tent was set up in such an organized way that everyone respected each other's privacy. No one rudely stepped into each other's bubbles, and they were super united. Aside from that, Bilam saw how devoted these people were to prayer and study. Prayer is the direct communication to God, and study being connecting and understanding the wisdom of God. So when Bilam saw this, he pronounced his third blessing. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, and your dwellings, O Israel. This is in Hebrew, Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. He says, he who blesses you will be blessed, and he who curses you will be cursed. So at this point, Balak, he just immediately crashed out. He straight up tried sending Bilam, just go home, dude. Just go home, bro. You're useless. You were brought here to curse them, and now you've blessed them 3 times. Bilam said, didn't I tell you guys specifically that I could only say what Hashem allows me to say? At this point, the Midrash says that Bilam did indeed give some advice as to how to make the Jews sin. Maybe trying to curse them won't work, but Bilam gave some advice saying, how about you guys try tempting the Jews into sinning? Put some obstacles in their way, see if they'll sin. But before Bilam left, Hashem forced him to give a 4th blessing. And this 4th blessing was really a prophecy. Bilam says, I see him, yet not at this moment. I behold him, yet not at this location. For a star will come from Jacob, a scepter will arise from Israel. The rabbis say, this is a prophecy, it's a reference to Mashiach, to the Messiah, who will destroy Israel's enemies. So after this last prophecy, Bilam turned around and he left quickly and quietly. No one paid attention to him. They didn't even know he left. After this, Bilam basically lost his fame. He was no longer famous, and he was no longer the special prophet of the Gentiles. Now he was just a regular magician. He had no connection whatsoever to the Spirit of holiness that could connect him to talking to God in any way. No. After these events, King Balak, who they trusted to come up with this evil plan to take down Israel, he lost his throne. Now, remember that before he left, Bilam did give Balak some advice. He told them that they should send women to provoke the Jews to sin. So Midian and Moab, the nations Midian and Moab, they quickly got to work. The women went to where Israel was staying. They sent a bunch of women. They brought a bunch of bread and wine, and the women convinced many Jews to join them in serving their God. Their God was named, let me put it up on screen, Baal Peor. And many Jewish men joined. Okay, and a lot of them were from the tribe of Simon. Not a single member from the tribe of Levi, but a lot of them from the tribe of Simon. Hashem was extremely angry. His people, right before entering the land, were sinning with foreign women and serving idols. Hashem told Moses to gather up all the leaders. You have to kill everyone who was serving Baal Peor. Then something very terrible happened. It says that there was one man from the tribe of Simon, a leader named Zimri. He took a foreign woman right into his tent. The Midrash says that Zimri, he was challenging Moses. He said, Moses, how come you get to marry a non-Jewish woman, but I don't? Remember, Moses' wife, the daughter of Yitro, she was technically from the Midianites. And the rabbis explained that really Moses was married to her before the Torah was given. So the rule technically wasn't around at that time. But Moses froze up and he went silent. Moses basically, he was just like a deer in headlights. He didn't know what to do. And everyone watched as Zimri took this girl into his tent. And they began to sin. No one knew what to do. This was a tragedy happening right before their eyes, but no one knew how to deal with it. Then, when a man named Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, some say Pinchas was the great-grandson of Aaron, he stood up from among the crowd, and he felt, you know what, it's my duty to intervene. Pinchas saw this terrible sin, and he decided to take action. He took a huge spear. He went up to Zimri's tent, and he struck his spear right through both Zimri and the woman, killing them both. Hashem sent out a plague to kill everyone who had sinned in this entire event, and it killed 24,000 people. Pinchas taught the Israelites that to defend Hashem's honor, you have to stand up, you have to be courageous, you have to be brave, and even if things get ugly, even if it means risking your life for the sake of heaven, you have to stand up for what's right. So this is where the Torah portion ends. Next week, we'll learn more about Pinchas. Next week, Torah's portion continues his story in the aftermath of these events, because the Midrash asks, what Pinchas did, killing these two people, was this the right move? Was he right for what he did, or was he wrong? Will he be blessed, or will he be cursed for what he did? Well, we'll find all that out in next week's Torah portion. For now, if you're watching this on Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, and if you're watching this throughout the week, Shalom, Shalom, Shavua Tov to all. See you all in the next lesson.